So let's discuss about the myofascial continuity of the upper extremity. So to begin with, we'll discuss about the anterior myofascial continuum of the upper quarter region. So let's discuss about the anterior myofascial continuum from the distal to the proximal aspect. So let's start with the distal aspect. So these are the thenar muscles. We have has attachments, probably a fascial attachment with the flexor retinaculum, which is considered to be the thickening of the antebrachial fascia of the forearm. So thus there is a link which is formed between these thenar muscles as well as the antebrachial fascia of the forearm. So if you see in this picture, this is the palmaris longus and this is the palmaris longus aponeurosis. And if you see, there is a link, a fascial continuum or the myofascial expansion between the palmaris longus with the thenar fascia, which envelops the thenar muscles. So thus there is a continuum between the forearm and the hand. Also, in this picture, if you see, there is a myofascial continuum between the thenar musculature with the flexor retinaculum, which is nothing but the thickening of the antebrachial fascia. Produce a traction to the thenar muscles. You can see the traction which is you can feel at the antebrachial fascia. So thus there is a myofascial continuum between the thenar fascia and the antebrachial fascia anteriorly. Now if you see this, these are the forearm musculature, and we have pituitaries, we have flexor carpi radialis, we have palmaris longus, and we have, this is the palmaris longus, this is the flexor carpi radialis, this is the palmaris longus with that forms the palmar aponeurosis, and we have flexor carpi ulnaris here. If you see this, there are a lot of fibers of the flexor carpi radialis, that is the muscle fibers of the flexor carpi radialis, has attachment to the antebrachial fascia. So see the muscular insertion of the flexor carpi radialis into the antebrachial fascia. This is the bicipital aponeurosis. The biceps muscle of the arm not only inserts to the radial tuberosity, it also has a myofascial expansion to the antebrachial fascia. So the bicipital aponeurosis or the lacetus fibrosis has two separate parts. One is the oblique part of the lacetus fibrosis, which links the brachial with the antebrachial fascia. So brachial fascia is the one which envelops the biceps and the triceps, whereas the antebrachial fascia envelops the forearm muscles. So the bicipital aponeurosis or the lacetus fibrosis links the brachial with the antebrachial fascia, and which has an oblique part as well as the longitudinal part of the lacetus fibrosis, which goes into the forearm, so thus forming a link proximally. So these lacetus fibrosis longitudinal fibers form the intermuscular septum between the flexor carpi radialis and the brachioradialis. So there is a link, strong link between the arm and the forearm muscle. Look at the biceps brachii muscle, which has two heads, short head, which has the attachment of the pectoralis minor as well as the coracobrachialis, whereas the long head of the biceps has attachment to the minor. So they share the same attachment spot at the coracoid process. And this is the long head of biceps brachii, which has attachment to the supraglenoid room, deep fascia, that is the brachial fascia. It goes in between the biceps and the triceps, and the agonist and the antagonist, forms the intermuscular septum, which includes medial intermuscular septum and lateral intermuscular septum, which is nothing but the thickening of the brachial fascia, which provides attachment to a lot of muscles of the arm. So here if you see this is the brachial fascia and biceps, and it has a thick attachment with the brachial fascia, which is the aponeurotic fascia of the arm. Myofascial expansion of the biceps to the brachial fascia. If you see that, there is a strong link between the biceps with the brachial fascia. So now coming to the trunk with the arm connection. So we have pectoralis major. As we have seen, we have three fibers of pectoralis major. The superior fibers, which is called as the clavicular fiber, and the mid sternocostal fibers, which is attached to the sternum as well as the costal regions of the ribs. And then we have inferior fibers which has attachment to the rectus. Superior fibers, that is the clavicular fibers of the pectorals, has pectoral fascia, and these clavicular fibers has attachment with the brachial fascia anteriorly. Costal fibers has attachment to the medial intermuscular septum medially. So basal costal fiber has attachment to the medial intermuscular septum, whereas the clavicular fibers has attachment to the anterior part of the brachial fascia. So thus, there is an anterior myofascial continuity of the upper quarter, which is formed by the pectorals, especially the clavicular fibers, which has attachment to the anterior part of the brachial fascia, and the clavicular fibers extends up to the sternocleidomastoid, and the sternocleidomastoid, and see the link between the biceps and the brachial fascia we have seen before, and we have also seen the link between the brachial and the antibrachial fascia, and we also have seen a link between the thenar and the flexor retinaculum, which is nothing but the thickening of the antibrachial fascia. Thus, all these muscles and the fascia forms a continuous link of the upper quarter connecting the different segments of the upper quarter and forms an anterior myofascial continuum.